Well, good evening, PJNET, the team to retire McCain. We've all got our coffee, and this is the first event like this we've done, and I want to thank all of you for being a part of it. This is the greatest team on Twitter, and these facts are not in dispute. And I hope everybody's got their coffee. And I was trying to think, for this first event, who could we bring on board to speak to us, on behalf of the Kelly campaign? Well, air hug.
That's right.
Kelly, it is really great to have you with us, and you have really fixed up your background there, and this is just stunning. This is way above our class. And listen, we're going to have plenty of time. I want you to just relax. There's no commercials because we don't have any sponsors. I guess that's a good thing in a way.
Hey, we're sponsored by the people, right?
We're grassroots, and but I was kind of reading up on your background, and I didn't do much. I was sent some material, but I was going to ask you this anyway, because one of the things that we have an opportunity to do is to get to know Kelly apart from the campaign stump speeches and all that. Your mom, your doctor.
Yes.
You woke up one morning and decided, this ain't working out so well. Maybe I'll go into politics. Is that what happened?
No. I never thought that I would run for political office. I will tell you that, because I am a military wife. I'm the mom of 3 awesome kids, Katie, Cameron, and Nick. I'm a family physician, had my own private practice for about 10 years, actually with my mom, who's a pediatrician. So we got to actually fulfill a dream of ours, which was to have a mother-daughter practice, which, was kind of interesting, because my mom went back to medical school when she was 42. She was an elementary school teacher first. Then she went back to medical school when I was a senior in high school. And so we always dreamed about having a practice together, but we didn't ever know if it would really actually happen. But we did. We had a great practice, very successful, thriving practice in Lake Havasu. And after about 10 years, the government came in and kind of made a lot of regulations, a lot of changes in who can get lab in your office and what procedures you can do and different things. And it made it very difficult, unbelievably, to really make a good living being a private practice family physician. And so at that point, I transitioned. I sold my practice to a community health center. That allowed me to continue to be able to serve my patients and serve the underserved, the people who weren't able to access the healthcare system in a more traditional way. And as I did that, that's about when 9/11 started happening, when the country started to change, when I started to really wake up politically to say, what is happening in our country, in our world, that something like 9/11 could happen on our soil. And so before that, before 9/11, I really was, the typical mom, the typical wife, reading women's magazines, cutting out recipes, going about my day, really not understanding that politics affects our day-to-day lives so intimately. But after that day, I really started to educate myself on what was happening politically in the world. Who was in charge, what was really happening. And as I did, I started to have more expectations for the people that represented me. And so I started to write letters. I started to make phone calls, send emails. And most of the time I was disappointed with what I got back, because generally it was nothing. Every now and then it was a form letter that I got several months, if not longer, away. Later I got a form letter, and every now and then I will say that I got something personal, generally from somebody at a more local level or the state level. And I found myself throwing my hands in the air and saying, why doesn't somebody do something? Why doesn't somebody do something? And I look at my hands and say, why don't I do something? I have got skills, I've got talents, I've got abilities, I have been blessed with so much. And I shouldn't just be hoarding that to my family or my patient population. There might be something I could do on a bigger scale. And that's how I decided to run for the Arizona State Senate. Because at that time, Arizona was looking to expand Medicaid and Obamacare Medicaid expansion and considering a state-based exchange via Obamacare. And I didn't think we had enough people from in the trenches who were taking care of patients on a day-to-day basis, who were helping to shape that health policy. And so that's how I ended up in the Arizona State Senate. And I really did do a great job in the Senate. I was a very effective state senator. Just last year, I was able to get 19 of my own bills signed into law. Bills that were designed to shrink the size of government, to lower taxes, to take the heavy hand of government off the heads of small businesses and let them thrive. Worked on healthcare reform, education reform, welfare reform, all kinds of common sense pieces of legislation that it took bipartisan support to get passed and then to get signed by the governor. And so people said, hey, you were really effective in Arizona. We would love to see that common sense go to Washington, D.C. and actually get things done, because I think everybody here tonight knows that Washington, D.C. is broken. And I'm looking to be the cure. We need a doctor to go to Washington, D.C., a problem solver, a passionate problem solver, who's able to think, who's able to analyze problems, who's able to break it down into digestible pieces for good outcomes for we the people. So I look forward to it.
Well, Kelly, from what I gather, you had a successful career in the medical field.
Yes.
You had a successful career as a state senator.
Yes.
And something I found out earlier in our conversation before we went on the air, you didn't have to leave that comfortable state Senate seat.
No, I did not. I made a conscious decision to step down from my seat in December before my last year in office. It wasn't required by law. I could have stayed in and served out that last year of service, but I've seen so many politicians who hold on for dear life to that title and that parking space, because there's a good parking space associated with being in the state Senate, a nice office, a great assistant who helps you to accomplish your tasks. But those things aren't what you're there for. You're there to represent the people who elected you. And in Arizona, it's about 220,000 people who depend on you to be their representative. And I didn't want to shortchange those 220,000 people in my legislative district. I wanted them to have a full component of representation in Phoenix. And so I knew I wasn't going to run for the Arizona State Senate again. I knew that someone else should be in there doing that job, and I knew I needed to be in this race to be able to win, to be able to challenge someone of John McCain's stature and experience and connectivity with the political process. I had to give it my all. I had to put in 100% in order to be able to do it, and it has paid off immeasurably. The people got represented, and I've been doing amazingly well in this race.
Isn't it a little scary, Kelly, to take on a David and Goliath match like that?
You know, I try not to be scared. I don't know if you guys can see. I've got a bracelet. It says fearless. Let's see. I can do it this
way. There you go.
Read it. Fearless. Because I really think that it's going to take somebody who is bold, who is fresh, who is fearless to be able to take on a race like this. And I will tell you, whenever I first threw my hat in the ring, I had people from the political inside, not really my friends or my family. They were gung-ho for me to go for this, but people that were connected inside that said, aren't you afraid of Senator McCain? And really my answer from that point on and still today is no American should ever be afraid of their elected representative. And if in America we've gotten to the point where citizens are afraid, whether it's being attacked by the IRS, if you're a conservative or a conservative group, targeted so that you aren't eligible or you aren't given the things that you should have as a conservative. Those things should never be happening. When I looked at what happened in Wisconsin with Scott Walker and people who supported Scott Walker, and they were targeted by a Democrat attorney general, and John and Jane Doe warrants were issued for those people's computers and their private information, and they weren't able to speak out. I thought something is wrong with government, and we cannot be afraid. I cannot be afraid. We have to speak out, because I truly want government of, for, and by the people. And if we don't have good people who are willing willing to put themselves, I told you, through the ringer. It's not really a ringer, it's like a wood chipper where the opposition and the establishment and the people that have been there for decade after decade after decade are trying to chop you up. Me as a candidate, and also my family, if people aren't willing to put themselves through that to put this country first, where are we as a country? And I don't want to be in the place where we are if we continue down the path that we're on right now.
Kelly, you spoke earlier when you first started becoming more politically conscious. You made the phone calls to D.C.
Yes.
Kelly, I've made those phone calls too.
Yeah.
And many times we're asked to call our representative, call our senator, and I certainly don't want to discourage that. But I will tell you, in my personal testimony, is I did not feel that it made any difference whatsoever. It was very discouraging. It was only when we began to organize ourselves as a team, as PJNET, that we began to get past that gatekeeper. So I promised you no gotcha questions, so I'm not posing this as a gotcha question.
I'm ready.
Can the people of Arizona expect that kind of treatment when they call, when you get in office?
Well, I certainly hope not, because that's one of the main things that I did when I was in the Arizona State Senate. One of my main objectives was to maintain the two-way communication between the people who are represented and me as their representative in the legislature at that time in the Arizona State Senate, because I think that's missing from good government. Our government is supposed to be a representative republic, and if we don't listen to the people we're supposed to be representing, then how can that be? How can we have that? And so I think it also depends on who you call and who your representative is. Now, I know it's very, very difficult for us in Arizona to get a hold of either one of our senators. No matter what, even as a state senator, there's a huge moat that surrounds our elected officials, and I think that moat is full of chomping alligators trying to prevent us from getting to those elected officials, and I think that has to end. We've got to have that bridge over the moat. That can't exist. So we do have a couple of great people in Washington, D.C. in the House, and I will say my representative, my congressman, Paul Gosar, is great. He has great staff that's very responsive, not only to me as a legislator, but to me as a citizen and to other people as citizens in our state, in our district. They're very responsive, and they try to solve problems. Now, other people are so concerned about staying in Washington that they have really become disconnected from the people. And I do think that that's what's happened with Senator McCain. He's somewhat disconnected. One of my friends lives in Arlington, and she actually sent me a picture on Facebook of John McCain shopping in Arlington for milk, and she said, shouldn't he be buying milk in Arizona? And I thought it was pretty humorous. I don't know if John McCain thought it was humorous, but I thought that was kind of funny, because it's true. He should be, if he's not in session, he should be buying milk in Arizona.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up Paul Gosar. First of all, he's a doctor.
Yes,
of a different dentist, yeah, but that's a medical doctor, and
yes, it is.
we actually interviewed him here. And the reason we did, do you remember the Bundy Ranch situation?
Yes, I remember it very well.
He was there.
I was there with Congressman Gosar.
He was there. And it's not even in his district, but that he was there. Being a darling of the Tea Party.
Regularly about going to Bundy Ranch, and that district does butt up in Nevada to my district where I was the senator in Arizona, and my constituents actually asked me to come up there because the federal government and the BLM were putting up free speech zones, and they were little pens basically, and they said that if you wanted to express your free speech, you had to be inside this pen. And I think the whole country is a free speech zone, not a little pen set up by the federal government. Right,
and you think right, because that's what the Constitution says. The free speech zone is the United States of America.
Yes.
That's why we have a First Amendment.
That's
Kelly,
exactly right.
A lot of good people have run for office and gone to Washington with the best of intentions.
Yes.
And I think they were good people. I really do.
Yeah.
How do you prevent Washington from changing you?
Yes. how do you stay away from Potomac fever, right? That's it. Well, as a doctor, I'm always looking for a way to prevent disease, and I think that I have an immunization against the influence of the lobbyists. I will tell you that, because as a physician, I've always had lobbyists in my profession. They're drug reps, pharmaceutical representatives, and generally they're great people. They're beautiful for the most part. They have some good information to give you, but you have to always remember they're trying to sell you something. And so I've learned to deal with that type of influence throughout my entire adult life. Now, I think a lot of people get elected and they've never had that kind of attention paid to them. And they fall under the spell of those lobbyists and those special interest groups. And unfortunately, they forget who they work for. And they begin to think that they work for those special interests rather than for the people they were elected to represent. And so I figured that out. And in the Arizona State Senate, I have been, I've maintained my conservative backbone of steel and didn't fall under the influence of lobbyists, special interests, or under the influence of the leadership in the Arizona legislature, Republican or Democrat. And so it's been good. I will tell you that when I first got into office as a very new freshman senator in Arizona, we were sworn in at the end of January, mid-January actually, and at the beginning of February of that first year in office, I had some very powerful lobbyists who came in and they wanted to give me some constructive criticisms. And of course, I'm new. I want to get, I want some constructive criticism so I can get better. They sat down in front of me and they said, Senator Ward, the problem is we don't like what you're saying and we don't like how you're saying it. And then they followed it up with, and we hope that this is going to be a long-lasting relationship that we have with you. And I said, well, it sounds like to me you're trying to threaten me, because you're a big, powerful lobbyist with a lot of money, and you, it sounds like, want to use that power and that money and that influence to take me out of this seat. Well, I got news for you, boys. Neither of you is in my district, as much as I like you both. Neither of you is in my district, and if the people in my district don't like what I'm saying, they don't like how I'm saying it, they won't re-elect me. And I'll go home and I'll do the job that I am very good at, that I love. And I thought that was perfectly reasonable. However, those two lobbyists didn't like it that much. They didn't talk to me for over a year, all the way until the next May. So not just May, from February to May, the next May. Even when I would walk out between the buildings, between the House and the Senate, we have a big lawn, a big plaza in Arizona, and I'd wave to them, and they just turn their backs as though I didn't exist. I was persona non grata. But I didn't really mind, because I didn't go to Phoenix to be popular, to be the best friend of the lobbyist. I went to Phoenix to do good work for the people of my district and the people of our state. And I want to go to Washington, D.C. to do good work for the people of my state and the people of my country. So I look forward to it.
I just remembered, you speaking of Washington and D.C., two questions. I'll ask them both because I'll forget the other, because you're pretty compelling. The follow-up question would be, who are some of the heroes in the Senate now that you look forward to working with? But before that, a former senator gave you an endorsement just this morning.
Yes. It was super exciting. It was super exciting because Dr. Ron Paul did endorse me today. The endorsement came out officially. He's not a man who has been given to give a lot of endorsement. So I'm glad that he has faith that he can pass the torch of liberty to me so that I can stand up beside someone like his son, Rand Paul. Other people that I really look up to are Senator Ted Cruz and Senator Mike Lee. I think that they are three new senators who have been so effective in what they've been doing in Washington, D.C., which is standing up for our Constitution, shrinking the size of government, or at least attempting to, and they need conservative reinforcements. Now, I know, a lot of people are disappointed that Ted Cruz is not going to be our nominee, likely, for the presidency, but I'll tell you, the selfish side of me is so excited to be able to stand up beside Senator Cruz and help him to to achieve conservative goals, to do things like stopping Obamacare. You know, I feel like John McCain has been throwing rotten tomatoes at Senator Ted Cruz and other conservatives for many years. And I think it's time for that to stop. I think it's time for us as Republicans to actually hold our Republican principles up and uphold them rather than let them cave in and compromise on those principles. And so I look forward to standing up with at least those three guys, and I'm sure that there are many more who, once they are unafraid and they don't have to be worried about powerful senators who have been there for decade after decade after decade, who are going to try to thwart their efforts to represent the people of their states in the way those people want to be represented, they too will join that conservative movement. I loved seeing the Freedom Caucus on the House side, and I think we need something like that on the Senate side, so that the senators who are for small government and low taxes and a strong military, the strongest military in the world, in fact, but people who don't want to utilize that military in the wrong way, who want a declared, if there's going to be war, it needs to be a declared war, declared by Congress, and then there needs to be a plan to win that war. You know, today's D-Day, the anniversary of D-Day, and we had over 160,000 Allied troops that went in, and over 9,000 were killed. That allowed 100,000 plus to save this world from Nazi Germany. And but at that time, we had a president, Dwight D. Eisenhower, who said he would accept nothing less than total victory. We've got a president in the Oval Office right now who has no plan to win. So we
don't have a strategy. We don't.
Yes, no strategy, no plan.
It's not that we don't want total victory. We don't even have a strategy, and he announces it. I mean, I'm just glad that we're able to speak in English, and if we want to drive a Volkswagen, it's optional.
Exactly right.
I had one, and I won't be doing that again. But my BMW motorcycle was anyway. Kelly, I'm enjoying this. I would love to continue it, but I tell you, there's some people in the chat room that are making it clear to me that I'm monopolizing you. So what I'd like to do is give you a moment just to make whatever little speech you want to and wrap it up. And if you'll hang out with us in the chat room, there's a lot of folks from around this country. This is a great team of people, and we are looking for a champion to stand with, and we want you to be that champion of the grassroots people, and we just love you, and we thank you. Most people don't give us the time of day, Kelly, and
I don't
thank
know
you
why.
so much.
I think I am so grateful to be here with you, and I will tell you, there's a lot that people can do from across the whole country. Of course, if you're in Arizona, I want your vote. I need your vote, and I need you to probably take 5 to 10 of your friends with you to the polls, because I need their votes as well. But across the country, there are so many things that we can do. The main objective is to increase my name awareness across this great state and across the country, because as that name ID climbs, more and more I am able to win. The latest poll shows that I am tied up with Senator McCain at 41 to 41%. And so this is a very, very winnable race. And don't be worried. It also shows that I can beat the Democrat challenger, and I think that once it is a one-on-one with her, it will be a sound thumping of the Democrat, because Arizona does not want a Democrat in the United States Senate. I can tell you that, especially not one who votes nearly 100% of the time with Barack Obama and Democrat leadership. So what you can do across the country is go to my website. Go there as soon as we're out of the chat room, kellyward.com. It's Kelly with an I, because I care about the people, and I will be a conservative champion for Arizona, for the United States, for the grassroots. I will be that conservative champion, and I will not let you down in that endeavor whatsoever. So kellyward.com, and there, sign up to join the team, and we will send you emails, and then we hope that you'll send those emails out to other people, to your friends, to increase that name ID. And then, of course, social media, you know, it's very, very important. It's become more and more important over time. I think that people really aren't paying that much attention to the attack ads that are on television, the attack mailers that are coming in people's mailboxes, but they love social media. They love that interaction with their friends, with their peers, with people people who believe the same way that they do. So please join me on Twitter, Kelly Ward AZ. You'll see me in the chat room. And on Facebook, it's Kelly Ward for Arizona. And again, remember, it's Kelly with an I. And we together can do this. Together we will be able to change the status quo, to make the difference that we want to make Washington work for us rather than feeling as though it's working against us every day. And as I like to say, we're going to shake up D.C. by sending our BFF to Washington, our bold, fresh, fearless voice that represents you, listens, and then represents you effectively in Washington, D.C. I look forward to it.
Kelly, you're a champ. You're welcome here anytime. Thank you for taking your time to share with us tonight, and we hope you'll hang out a little bit and get to know some of the greatest patriots on Twitter.
Definitely will. I'll see you in the chat room.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.